Hello, and welcome to my thoughts on this very, very hot Thursday. But I have been of late inundated with flowers, and I love flowers. I cannot tell you how much I love flowers. When I lived in Pacifica, I had a garden that had flowers all year round. So never was a time that I couldn't have fresh flowers in the house and flowers in my garden. Um, I love flowers, and I believe that it's important to have flowers in the house. But I have been inundated. Usually, my darling friend Rob Mayhew brings me flowers once a week. But now Peter Dunbar sent me flowers, and my friend Louis Schaefer sent me flowers, and my friend Paula Doherty brought me flowers. And my friend Andrea got me flowers. And there are flowers all over the place. And I tend my flowers every morning. I take my flowers and I cut off an end of the stem so they'll stay happy. And I make my flowers happy. But it was not always like that. I did not have, nobody ever gave me flowers, ever, ever. When I was young, my husband never gave me flowers, so I never, my husband's, my parents certainly never gave me flowers. Um, and the only time I ever got flowers, I remember, was twice. Once, there was a man named Jimmy that whenever I would finish a novel, and those of you who know me know that I've written 11 of them, whenever I finished a novel, he would send me flowers. And I was at that time in my 60s, and I had never gotten flowers before, and I was absolutely ecstatic. He couldn't have gotten me anything nicer than bought flowers, and to see a florist pull up to the front door and give me flowers. So I had not had flowers. But before then is the story I'm going to tell you. When I moved to California, at that point, I had never, ever received a bouquet of flowers, ever. And then my very first Valentine's Day, even on Valentine's Day, I didn't get a flower. When I was younger, we went to dances. We got corsages, and I love that. And if you come over to my house now, and you're willing to climb up to the top shelf that I can't reach, you will see a scrapbook full of flowers that I pressed and kept because that's how much it meant to me. So I had never had flowers. And when I moved into a 3021 Glendale in Redwood City, my very first Valentine's Day, I moved there in January of 1981. And that very first Valentine's Day, I got a bouquet of flowers. And I ran up to see who had given me this because I didn't know anyone. And there was a sign that said, a little card that said, Happy Valentine's Day, Melvin. Melvin? I didn't know anyone named Melvin. And I sat and I thought and I thought and I thought and I thought, who do I know named Melvin? And then I remembered that I had been ushering at Lively Arts at Stanford University, and the head usher was a man named Mark, a man named Melvin, excuse me, that I absolutely loved. His name was Melvin, and I absolutely loved him. And he was so good to all of us. He really went out of his way to make his ushers feel like they were special. So I figured it had to be him because it couldn't be anyone else. So I sat down and I wrote a thank you note to Melvin, and I told him how much I loved these flowers. And then I put them in a vase and I admired them. And I sent out and I mailed my thank you note. On that Friday, Melvin knocked at my door and he said, but then he had a bouquet of roses. And he said, I should have gotten you flowers for Valentine's Day, Miss Miller, he said, but I just didn't think of it. And I was thrilled. I got another bouquet of flowers, and I put my roses in a vase. I gave him some tea, and I gave him some cookies, and I hugged him, and I swore that I would usher for that university until it crumbled to the ground. And I kissed him goodbye. And when he left, I leaned against the door and I thought, I don't know another Melvin. I don't know another Melvin. Then I remember that I used to shop at Key Market, and I always, banter with people. And the little boy that used to bag my groceries, because in those days we didn't bag them ourselves, the little boy who used to bag my groceries, his name was Melvin. But he was a wonderful little kid. And I thought, well, that had to be who it is because I just lived here for 4 months. I don't know anybody else. It was not 4 months, 2 months. I don't know anybody. So I went over to Key Market, and while Melvin bagged my groceries, I put my arms around him and I said, I want to thank you for that beautiful bouquet, darling. It was the most wonderful Valentine's gift I've ever gotten. And I was telling the absolute truth. But the problem was I was telling it to the wrong man. Or I should say boy, because Melvin was 14 years old. Melvin went back in the back stockroom, and he came back with a daisy and a little balloon that had "Be Mine," a helium balloon. And he said, I got these for you on Valentine's Day, Miss Miller, but I couldn't bring it over until today. He was lying. And I said, that's so lovely of you, Melvin. And I kissed him again. And I walked home. And tears, my eyes filled with tears. How could the world be so cruel? So cruel. Here I was, at that point, I was 49 years old. How could it be that someone in this world loved me, whose name was Melvin, and I didn't have the faintest notion who he was. I looked at the delivery box that I got the flowers in, because of course I saved that too, and I called the florist to see whether he would tell me who had sent the bouquet, and he said, we're not allowed to divulge that information. So I said, what's your name? And he said, Floyd McCann. Why do you ask? I was too choked up to answer. I hung up the phone, and then I looked at my 3 bouquets. I had the daisies from Little Melvin. I had the flowers from Smart Melvin. And I had this beautiful, very, very variable bouquet from Mysterious Melvin. And I leaned back and I admired them. And I went and I inhaled their fragrances. And then I looked up at the sky and I said, oh, thank you, Melvins of the world. I will treasure my first Valentine's Day triple header as long as I live. And I do. However, now I have a quadruple hitter, and I'm treasuring them as well. Because as I said, there's nothing that can make me happier than flowers, except maybe a puppy. And I want to thank you very much for joining me for my thought on this wonderful, wonderful hot Thursday.